Terastallization is the new mechanic introduced in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and for those who go into games unprepared, it can be brutal to face. So in today's video, I'm gonna break down the top 10 terastal Pokemon for Scarlet and Violet so you know what to use. I'll break down what Pokemon are the best type to use for them, and other valuable types in case their best type may not fit well onto your team. Similar to our top 10 for the best Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet, I want to go over some honorable mentions in case you guys are looking for some stuff you can use that aren't banned from singles currently. For our honorable mentions, we have Terastal Normal Dragonite, Terastal Fire Baxcalibur, and Terastal Dark Kingambit. Starting off with Dragonite, it has become an absolutely terrifying option in competitive with Terastal Normal this gen, allowing for Dragon Dance or Choice Band movesets that focused around extreme speed to shine. If you pair Dragonite with a strong steel counter, this sort of moveset will do wonders in competitive for you. Speaking of dragons, Baxcalibur with Terastal Fire has also been tearing up singles thanks to its ability to now resist fairy types thanks to Tera Fire. You might be thinking that it's a bit counterintuitive to change into a fire type, as your ability already ignores burns. However, it's actually able to resist fairy type attacks while also damaging steels with Tera Blast. Since Tera Blast Fire, Glaive Rush, and Icicle Crash destroys practically every Pokemon under the sun after a single Dragon Dance. Finally, Kingambit can take advantage of Terastal Dark to boost its Sucker Punch damage even further. And in tandem with Supreme Overlord and Defiant as two strong offensive abilities, you become one of the strongest cleaners in competitive Pokemon. Now that we've covered our honorable mentions, starting off our list at number 10, we have Iron Valiant. Iron Valiant is one of the new Paradox Pokemon this gen, and with the ability Quark Drive, it has established its place as a terrifying offensive piece. Iron Valiant is equipped with a strong stab combination of Fairy and Fighting, with two strong offensive stats of 130 attack and 120 special attack. When you add in the 116 speed that Iron Valiant has as well, you can easily see why this Pokemon is a strong candidate for Terastal. So what type should be used for Terastal on Iron Valiant? While I think there are a lot of strong options such as Dark, Electric, Psychic, and Fairy, ultimately I believe the best option for Iron Valiant is Tera Fighting. Going for the Terastal Fighting type on Iron Valiant allows you to shatter a lot of common bulky Pokemon in the tier, such as Corviknight, Garganacl, and Ting-Lu. There are very few fighting type switch-ins in this tier, and you can typically muscle past them with options such as Knockoff or Psycho Cut in order to allow Iron Valiant to sweep a team. You can also utilize this Pokemon specially, while still getting coverage such as Psychic and Shadow Ball for typical fighting resists. Overall, Iron Valiant is a monster with Terastal, especially when you choose the fighting type. Our ninth option on today's list comes from one of OU's greatest Pokemon this generation, Goldango. You might be surprised to find a Pokemon that's on the cusp of being banned from the tier so low on our list, but Goldango's not exactly known for running away with battles thanks to this mechanic. Despite this, however, Goldango still has a monstrous special attack stat with 134, and the ability to boost this further thanks to Nasty Plot. With your ability Good as Gold as well in your back pocket, Goldango can become a fairly destructible setup mon that has a strong immunity to options such as Taunt, Haze, or Thunder Wave that may otherwise stop a sweep. The best Terastal type on Goldango would probably be Tera Ghost. You'll be able to keep your immunity to Rapid Spin this way, while also boosting your Ghost type moves even further. There are a few other typings that you can go for that offer a bit of defensive utility, such as Steel, Dark, Water, and Fighting. However, I personally can't imagine why you would go for these when there are so few reliable switch-ins to Ghost moves, as is from Goldango. You can typically run this with Nasty Plot, Shadow Ball, Make It Rain, and either Focus Blast or Recover, with opponents pretty much having to worry if they'll even be able to take your Goldango out after getting rid of half their mods. If Goldango didn't seem terrifying already, at number 8, we get into one of the best breakers OU has to offer, Chienpai. For anyone who doesn't know, Chienpai is basically Generation 8 Weavile, but with a slightly higher speed stat. and an offensive ability that actually benefits its damage output, being Sword of Ruin. Sword of Ruin cuts the opponent's physical defense by 25%, allowing Chienpai to become one of the best breakers in the tier. With your Ice and Dark typing, it's hard to imagine there are actually switch-ins to your stabs, especially when this tier lacks some of Weavile's best checks from Generation 8, such as Melmetal and Buzzwole. If you're looking to run Chienpai with Terastal in this gen, the best choice I can think of would be Terastal Dark. Chienpai can also take advantage of types such as Ice, Psychic, and Electric in order to handle specific matchups a bit better. Dark has proven to be a vital typing for most teams in competitive. With your stronger priority option on Chienpai being Sucker Punch, you're able to boost this damage even further and utilize items such as Choice Band to one-shot a majority of your opponent's Pokemon. While either of Chienpai's stab options make for a strong Tera typing, I lean slightly more towards Dark in order to avoid taking on Prankster Thunder Waves from Pokemon such as Grimmsnarl, as well as Dark just being a slightly better defensive typing in general. For our number 7 Pokemon today, we have another Pokemon from the legendary Ruin Quartet, Chiyu. Chiyu has crept up in notoriety after bans from Pokemon such as Palafin and Iron Bundle in the OU tier, making it now one of the best special wall breakers the tier has to offer. Chiyu's greatest strength is its ability, Beads of Ruin, which drops the opponent's special defense by 25%. This basically is the special counterpart to Sword of Ruin, as they both aim to drop defensive stats for your opponent's Pokemon. With Sun being the most prevalent weather offensively this generation thanks to past Paradox Pokemon, Chiyu has utilized Terastal Fire to offer these teams an incredible breaker offensively. While I found success with Terastal Dark, Psychic, Water, Electric, and even Fairy this generation, I believe that Fire is ultimately your safest option for Chiyu. Chiyu is able to shatter a majority of opponents with a Sun-boosted Terastal Fire attack, even without a damage-boosting item such as a Life Orb or Choice Specs. This allows Chiyu to utilize heavy-duty Boots or Choice Scarf, with Boots helping mitigate hazards as you're keeping the Fire type. Meanwhile, Scarf allows you to boost your rather average base 100 speed stat. With recent discussion around Chiyu leaning towards the possibility of a ban from the OU tier, I would recommend taking advantage of this Pokemon before it leaves the main singles metagame. Speaking of controversial OU Pokemon, let's talk about our number 6 entry, Anihilipe. Anihilipe solely takes advantage of Terastal in order to utilize its signature move, Rage Fist, which is a 50 base power ghost type move that increases in damage every time you take damage. With a stab combination of Ghost and Fighting and the ability Defiant, it's no wonder Anihilipe ended up making our list for a strong Terastal user. I can't imagine either Fighting or Ghost being a bad Tera type for a Pokemon with 115 attack that also has a decent 90 speed stat, while also having fairly decent defenses. Well, for anyone wondering which stab I believe is the best for Terastal on Anihilipe, it's actually neither. I believe the best Tera typing on Anihilipe is actually the Water Tera typing, which allows Anihilipe a strong defensive type that can help support it when setting up sweep teams with Rage Fist. Typically these movesets run Bulk Up, Rage Fist, Drain Punch, and Rest with the Chesto Berry in order to destroy teams offensively after a few bulk ups. Thanks to your strong defensive typing with Terastal Water, you have a few more turns of taking hits from opponents before even their best walls are one-shot by Anihilipe's Rage Fist. And Rest allows you to clear any sort of status your opponent may try to utilize to stop this. While Fighting, Ghost, Steel, Flying, and even Fairy all work well as Tera types on Anihilipe, Water has so far established itself as the best Tera type for this Pokemon. It feels weird going from a few highly controversial OU Pokemon into our 5th entry. But I honestly believe our number 5 entry in Dragonpalt is a terrifying Terastal option. While nobody's screaming to ban Dragonpalt just yet, Dragonpalt manages to be one of the most frightening Terastal options this tier allows. Dragonpalt typically is able to utilize options such as Dragon, or its strongest Terastal typing Ghost, in order to force common Dragonpalt checks in this tier, such as Tyranitar, that take significantly more damage when switching against you. So why do I have Dragonpalt so high on our list today, despite there being more noteworthy OU Pokemon lower in the rankings? Dragonpalt has the unique ability among our picks today of being a heavily mixed bag when it comes to terastal, especially Ghost. While Choice Specs Dragonpalt is probably the main set you're using, Terastal Ghost allows Dragonpalt to utilize not only its special sets, but also physical ones, such as Dragon Dance and Choice Band, while getting access to a viable physical Ghost move in Tera Blast. Considering Dragonpalt can now viably utilize a Choice Band, all it takes is a single correct prediction using U-turn while Tyranitar comes in before it takes half from Dragonpalt and you no longer have a safe switch into your opponent's Tera Ghost Pokemon. While Fighting, Fairy, Dragon, and Fire all have their uses on this Pokemon, Terastal Ghost Dragonpalt proves to be a monster in the OU tier currently. Our strongest Terastal user in the OU tier, and fourth entry on today's list, comes from one of the best Paradox Pokemon, being Roaring Moon. Roaring Moon has proven to be one of the most versatile Terastal picks in the OU tier, and probably the flagship Pokemon as far as the mechanic goes in this tier. Whether you're using Terastal Fire on Sun teams, Terastal Ground to boost your best coverage option, Terastal Steel for fairies, the list goes on. Roaring Moon is probably one of the least optimized options for Terastal yet in the metagame, as it still feels like we're finding out new creative ways to take advantage of this mechanic for Roaring Moon. I found Terastal Flying to be one of the easiest ways to absolutely run away with a match, and it's all thanks to the item Booster Energy. Thanks to Booster Energy, Roaring Moon not only activates Photosynthesis, but it's also able to use its consumable item to benefit from the move Acrobatics. Typically ran with Dragon Dance, Crunch, Acrobatics, and Earthquake, Roaring Moon really only actually struggles to defeat Corviknight and Dondozo among the OU tier. Overall, I can't imagine OU will find another more destructive Terastal option, even if Roaring Moon manages to get banned from the tier before Terastal does. Getting into our number 3 option today, we actually cover our first Ubers Pokemon, being Palafin. While I'm sure a lot of people will comment something regarding Terastal on Houndstone, I actually think the mechanic is better suited to Pokemon such as Palafin due to how strong Last Respects will be for teams anyway. Palafin, on the other hand, can utilize Terastal on Choice Band variations in order to limit the amount of switch-ins your opponent may otherwise have on a team. While Palafin has a few strong Tera types, such as Terastal Fighting, Psychic, and Steel, ultimately, I believe the best Terastal type for Palafin is Tera Water. Tera Water especially benefits Choice Band Palafin, due to the increase in damage for its signature move, Jet Punch. Jet Punch is basically Aqua Jet, but you have 60 base power instead of 40. Thanks to Terastal Water, you're able to potentially even 2-hit KO Pokemon such as Slowbro and Toxapex with the Choice Band Wave Crash. Though to their credit, this does mean you need to run Adamant on Palafin. This allows Palafin to easily secure its spot as one of the greatest breakers this gen. However, I believe we still have 2 options stronger than even this Pokemon on our list. Moving on to our runner-up for today's list, we have our best future Pokemon being Iron Bundle. Iron Bundle has proven to be a destructive option with Terastal due to how difficult its stabs are to switch into, especially with Freeze Dry as an option to handle opposing water types. Iron Bundle also has the benefit of being one of the only viable Pokemon that can outspeed Fluttermane, Koraidon, and Miraidon in Ubers, despite having no strong priority options like Chienpai would. Whether you're using the heavy-duty boots to avoid hazards, or the booster energy to outspeed opposing Choice Scarf Pokemon, Iron Bundle is easily one of the biggest threats this gen in competitive. So what Tera typing should you use for Iron Bundle? I recommend using the Terastal Ice typing with Iron Bundle, as this would have a strong matchup against the majority of the Pokemon you'd face this gen. You basically need to predict perfectly around it in order to defeat this Pokemon, or bring a Pokemon such as Chienpai with priority in order to defeat Iron Bundle. While most will be tempted to use Terastal Electric for Bolt Beam coverage, having Freeze Dry and Hydro Pump is really all you actually need offensively, especially on a Tera Water moveset. Going into the best Terastal Pokemon, we have of course Fluttermane. Fluttermane has proven to be one of the most destructive Pokemon this generation, and a massive part of this is honestly thanks to Terastal. While Fluttermane certainly will still destroy teams without the mechanic, utilizing Terastal, you can even rival Geomancy Xerneas' damage output from previous gens. All it takes is throwing on a choice specs and partnering yourself with a Sunsetter such as Koraidon, and modest Fluttermane can do around the same amount of damage modest Geomancy Xerneas would have. While typically Fluttermane would benefit from a timid nature in order to speed tie other Fluttermane, or our Generation 9 cover legendaries, it's definitely scary to think that Fluttermane is capable of reaching this level of damage with support such as Sticky Webs or Thunder Wave for speed control. The best Tera typing on Fluttermane would honestly be Fairy, as Terastal Fairy adds a few benefits to Fluttermane in competitive. For one, you lose your weakness to opposing Fluttermane, which would otherwise attack you with a super effective Ghost attack. While you can certainly take advantage of Terastal Normal in order to completely wall opposing Ghost moves, going for Terastal Fairy provides a stronger offensive option for you in terms of boosting the damage from your Fairy Stab. Not only this, but with Terastal Fairy, you also keep the immunity versus dragons, especially Koraidon and Miraidon. Overall, it's genuinely no surprise Fluttermane manages to keep a spot at the top of our Terastal Pokemon list today. So that's my list of the top 10 Terastal Pokemon for Scarlet and Violet. While there are so many amazing Terastal options this generation, these are the 10 I felt would be the strongest in competitive. I'm sure though, there are other strong options you can use in these games, so make sure you leave your lists down below in the comments for what you feel are the best Terastal Pokemon these gens have to offer. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more, make sure to leave a like on today's video and use that subscribe button in order to stay up to date on future Scarlet and Violet top 10s. Thanks for watching the video and for coming through and enjoying Scarlet and Violet with me. We've got so much content coming surrounding Gen 9 through the end of the year and beyond, including the top 10 strongest Pokemon, the best team for the games, and much more. If you're interested in more Mystic content, check out my TikTok and Mystic Umbreon Shorts YouTube channel. When we get to 5,000 subs on the channel, we're going to have a new series related to Scarlet and Violet that will be exclusive to there, so go subscribe. Also, if you're into fanfictions or Genshin Impact, check out Mystic Reads and Tebotchnary. I offer a ton of creative spoken word content over there, and I do a bunch of theories and lore videos surrounding Genshin Impact. So come join me over there at that Float Your Boat. That's all for now. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time for more Scarlet and Violet content.